This is the process that's necessary to go through to make a submission for the Fingal development plan. I hope it's helpful. So we'll get started. So the handiest way, I believe, to get to the location on the internet is to go to consult.fingal.ie, and here you can find a lot of the currently open plans that are looking for public feedback. But the one we're interested in, obviously, is the Fingal development plan. And here you've got the option to make a submission. And if you're not registered already as a user on Fingal County Council, you have to register here. So I've done that already, but just to look at the process, you just click in here and you register either as an individual, organization, or agent, and so on. In our case, it's an individual, and you just provide all your details. It's a fairly straightforward process. You give a username and an address. Everything else is self-explanatory. You have to be over 16 and so on. And you might give your consent, and that's pretty much it. It's a very straightforward process, and get you set up then to make a submission, because when you go in to make a submission, you'll be asked to log on with that user ID. So we go ahead and jump into the making the submission itself. So you click on this. Now, one of the things that's probably worth doing before you make your own submission is to look at the existing submissions. And of course, it's useful to look at the development plan. Now, it's not necessary to look at this in detail, but it's very yeah, it gives a lot of guidance if you have the time to go through it. One of the things, the written statement is gives is probably the part that we're going to need most for making our own submissions, but that's something you can choose to do or not choose to do. It's not necessary. To look at the previously existing submissions, you click on here, and you'll get a page with all the existing submissions. Now, it's not that easy to see because you've got to click into each one individually, and it takes a long time. And perhaps I find an easier way to do it is to use this export to Excel option. And with that, you can download a file. And when you open it up, then you can see everything on one page. Now, again, it's not the most user-friendly page display, but all the information is there. Now, I find what I did find was that if I wanted to see what was done already for Lusk, I use this column here, the submissions column, and you can filter on that. Anybody who's familiar with Excel will know this already, but you can filter that, and you can filter on Lusk. So bear me a second. Where's my filter box gone? I'm going to create text filter, contains, and Lusk. Here we have the entries that have Lusk contained in that field. So it's now, like I say, it's not that simple to use, but at least you can see all the submissions that have been made for some of them, because any of the entries that don't contain Lusk in that field won't be here. But there are some very, very good submissions already made. So, okay, we go back out of that, and what we can do is go back into the section to make your submission ourselves. So this is where we go to that point there. So make a submission. And like I say, when we go to make a submission, we have to give our own details, and that's the user ID that we used when we set up the account. So and then you go through the various pages. Submission title, and I could say, so one thing that I'm using as an example is a shuttle bus. It's been serving station. Oops. And your submission about a particular place, so I'll say Lusk and Rush. And then start. And then you start getting your options. So you get your edit, your um, your submission. Okay, and the chapter you have to choose. So when you come into this screen, you'll have to pick one of these options here. And for me, the most straightforward one to use is the written statement, where the bulk of the report is. And if we go into, you have to pick one of the most appropriate options, and it would be in any one of these options here. So you pick the one that's closest, and in my case, because we're talking about a transport link, I'd say connectivity and movement. And then I'd give it a description, say that I believe a um, public transport shuttle connectivity between Rush and Lusk train station would reduce traffic and allow the amenities of both locations to be used by people in both communities, and so on, and go into more detail here. And the other thing is you can add attachments. So if you have any supporting evidence or anything like that, or you maybe want to talk about places where it's been done elsewhere, and then you can go onto a map. You can say where you want it. Now you don't have to do any of this, but I think it'll probably help. So in my case, I'd be saying between um, Rush and Lusk, so I can mark it out. Select a draw mode. Now it's quite clunky, this thing, I feel. So you have to double click, and then oh, so I'm going to say between Rush and Lusk, and that's it. So it's a link between the two, and then I'm going to say finish, and then that'll go in with the submission, and then save and review. Now in my case, it's not complete, so I won't be doing it, but that's essentially what it takes to make a submission. So I hope that's useful. Thank you very much.